join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Omar Harris.
This is The End of the Boss, 7 Rules for the Modern Leader, and I am Omar L. Harris.
Now, one of the things I like to do at the beginning of my talks is tell myself a mantra. And I hope that you all would join with me in this mantra today as a bit of a call and response.
I want to tell you a story about my first business. I actually started it when I was 7 years old.
One more time with feeling. It's not about me. That's wonderful. That's great. Now, I'm sure when you all saw the title of this talk, you had 2 thoughts in mind. First, what the heck is Jedi leadership? And second, will Omar come dressed in an Obi-Wan Kenobi cosplay? Well, I'm sorry to disappoint on the second point, but I'm very happy to oblige you on the first. When I say Jedi leadership and leaders, I'm referring to leaders who embrace the cause of the social justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion in how they lead and show up for their people.
Now, modern leadership and modern leaders have modern goals. If you go back to that pyramid and think about who's on top of that pyramid, the bosses respond primarily to shareholders. So the higher up you go, if you become the CEO of a corporation, you're really working to keep profits and money flowing towards your shareholders. But there are a lot of other stakeholders who require value to be added to them. Employees, customers, communities, the environment, that are actually far more important to be adding value to in addition to working for shareholders. So if you stay in the boss mode, you're not going to really be able to add value to all these different stakeholders. So it's really important that we modernize our approach so that we can begin to live out the true purpose of corporations.
And we servant leaders have a unique opportunity in this brave new world to create more value, but also be more valuable than ever before. And I want to show you how in this talk.
So on this slide, what you can see here is some luminaries of business and politics. You have Henry Ford, JFK, Steve Jobs, and Elon Musk, people that we really admire for what they produced in their lifetimes. But when you begin to think about the how underneath them, I remember reading Walter Isaacson's biography of Steve Jobs and finding out just how toxic the work culture was in Apple under his leadership. And that may have worked in the 90s and in the early 2000s, but now we're in a world where the how is as important as the what. And so the beginning for us to begin to modernize our approach is to begin to value the how as much as the what. And that how cannot be for serving the ego. It has to be about something bigger than ego-driven concerns. Now, we don't value enough trust-based influencing in terms of a way to get things done in the world and business. But Martin Luther King is a great example of how powerful this concept is. Think about Martin Luther King for a second. This is somebody who was not an elite, didn't go to the best schools, came up in the South poor and disenfranchised like many black people in that era. But what he did have was he did get an education, and he had a flair for oratory. And more importantly than that, an ability to gain coalitions and get people from a broad spectrum of the country to trust him. And because of this trust, he was able to make significant impacts in the lives of millions of people in America. Now, Martin Luther King was not a king. He wasn't a president. He didn't have any special pedigree. But with his ability to gain trust, he gained influence and basically, once again, was able to make a significant change for millions of people around the world.
The good news for us is that we don't have to aspire to MLK levels of influence to become Jedi leaders. We simply have to ask and answer 3 questions for ourselves. And these 3 questions are, why do I serve? Second question is, how do I leave a positive legacy? And lastly, what do I really care enough about to give my all?
I'm sure you've heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the theory of human motivation that basically states that in order for us to be at our best, we need to be fulfilled from physiological needs all the way up to self-actualization. What's always fascinated me about this pyramid is the fact that what we deem as wealth in society today is not more love and belonging, more esteem, and more self-actualization, but actually more of what is easily achieved relatively at the bottom 2 levels of the pyramid. And this dynamic explains a lot of the problems that we're seeing in business and in society today, with everybody chasing the bottom two levels of the pyramid and not trying to achieve love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization.
And there is no just cause more appropriate for our times than working side by side to eradicate injustice, eliminate inequity, embrace diversity, and enhance inclusion. Much like the Rebel Alliance of Star Wars stood up to the tyranny of the Galactic Empire, the struggle for Jedi leaders mirrors the movies in that the toxic forces of ego-driven bosses are leading to a world where employees are disengaged, customers are taken for granted, communities are left behind, the environment is constantly damaged, and shareholders lack confidence in the fundamentals of their investments.
But I had other choices to make about my leadership brand, and this is me at 29 as a marketing director in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And I had a choice to make in terms of what kind of leader was I going to be? Was I going to be a boss, or was I going to try something different? And you out there watching this talk had the same choice that I had. You have a choice to decide whether you want to help your people self-actualize or basically promote lower level values of the pyramid, whether you want to help build people's esteem or whether you want to tear them down, whether you want to be a source of positivity in the life of your employees or whether you want to be a source of negativity and drain.
This is about what we value most: personal gain or more gains for more stakeholders. MLK Jr. knew that the journey to the proverbial mountaintop would not only benefit African Americans, but it would create a better society as well.
The path to Boston is like the path to the dark side, in that it really all relates to serving the ego versus serving the other. When you choose to serve the ego, basically you're focusing on the bottom two levels of Maslow's pyramid. When you choose to serve the other, that's when you can really begin to self-actualize. You can really create a space for love and belonging for yourself and for others. You get a boost of self-esteem from helping and develop other people, and you're giving back, and giving back always fills your cup up as much as it fills the cup of others.
Dismantling barriers, eliminating privilege, creating opportunities, capitalizing on differences, and amplifying voices. Jedi leadership is not an easy job. But as servant leaders, we've chosen a purpose linked to serving and supporting others. When we combine this with the right mindset, habits, and commitment, we realize that to serve and support our people, we have to start asking the right question. Like, what are the injustices happening here that we need to eradicate? What are the inequities we need to eliminate? To what degree is diversity valued, promoted, and encouraged in all its facets, not just obvious diversity? How do we know everyone feels a sense of inclusion and belonging?
And if you remember nothing else from this presentation, remember this slide. Modern leaders lead with humility, will, and empathy, not with the ego. This is really fundamental for how you transform your approach. These three behaviors are really the key to being able to modernize your leadership approach.
My purpose is to empower and inspire people to live their best lives by embracing servant leadership principles. I had to do more. And the more I thought about the goals of stakeholder capitalism, and the more I learned about the principles of Jedi work, the more I realized that there was a clear connection between them. You can't accomplish one without the other.
Now we're going to talk about the 7 rules for modern leadership. And we talked about what you had to unlearn. Well, these are the things that you need to learn. And these are really behaviors that are not hard to implement and make a huge difference in the lives of others. I'm going to talk about each one of these in turn, but you can see that each one of these is actually a contrast to what you see on the other side.
So why do I serve? To empower and inspire people to live their best lives by embracing servant leadership principles. How do I leave a positive legacy? By being an example of successful servant leadership and inspiring others with my talents of writing, speaking, coaching, consulting, training, and leading. And what do I really care enough about to give my all? Eliminating injustices, eradicating inequities, expanding diversity, and enhancing inclusion for all.
I want to end with a shape that we don't see enough in business today, which is the heart. A lot of us, when we arrive at the office or we're working virtually today, when we get on our Zoom calls, we take our heart and we tuck it in a drawer, we put it someplace else because we believe that it's a dog-eat-dog world, and we believe that, business is war. And we keep our caring and our heart away from this because we may have to make difficult decisions for people one day, or we don't want people to be too close to us. We want to keep that arm's length relationship. But actually, the best leaders, and this has been known since the 1970s, the best leaders are the ones who care for the people and bring their heart to work and demonstrate their caring and their empathy and their humility every single day. And this becomes their superpower for how they're able to get things done with trust-based influence and not by dictating and demanding and commanding their way to success. And so my advice to you, my last piece of advice in this presentation is, instead of leaving your heart in a drawer, wear your heart on your sleeve. Become a leader who cares about not only what happens to the organization and what's happening in the P&L, but cares about every single individual in your organization. You will find yourself being far more fulfilled. That space in love and belonging and esteem and self-actualization, you will fill that up. You will no longer have to chase what's relatively easy to achieve in the bottom levels of the pyramid. And when you become more filled up as an individual, you become your best self as a leader, and you bring that to work every day. So
thank you.